A Mother's Life. Author, Agamora, Crossdress. Small World. Bonus 2, Old Friend. Note, this story takes place before the events from part 2 of the main storyline. My name is Aaron, a successful interior design technician. This success is thanks in no small part to a childhood friend of mine. Because before, I was very timid, shy and had no special abilities, a type of person that was almost destined to be a failure in society. It all started about 10 years ago, when we were in an orphanage. I am an orphan, but not because my biological parents died, but I am the victim of a broken marriage. My parents are not happy. From the age of awareness, I have heard many quarrels and voices from my parents. This situation did not continue for too long when they decided to go their separate ways and both gave up custody of the child. Both my parents had new lovers, and I was adopted by a local orphanage before even entering elementary school. It was my unhappy childhood that formed in me a timid nature, always afraid and living aloof from society. The orphanage is a very good place, the living conditions and environment are not too bad. At least, I don't have to listen to loud, arguing words every day anymore. But everything has its dark side. The orphanage was overcrowded and the nannies who cared for it couldn't have enough time to pay attention to the children's entire lives. I came to the orphanage when I was quite young, along with my weak nature. I quickly became the object of bullying from the orphanage's bullies. They really enjoy it when they made a mess every day with someone like me who never fights back. Many times they snatch the candy we were given in the late afternoon. Many times they beat me just to satisfy their damn pleasure. But no matter how many times they repeated that disgusting behavior, I never once stood up to fight back, simply because I was afraid of them. I have been through a series of difficult days with my own family and now I still cannot escape the cruel fate. Every day that passes is like hell to me. It went on like this day by day until I was 10 years old. At that time, there was a kid who had just moved in. I was very surprised. At this age very few people have to go to the orphanage. He looks like he doesn't care about life, his face always has an unpleasant color. Since he was about my age, of course he was assigned to our area. Through the introduction of the nanny, I knew that his name was Taft. He entered the orphanage because his parents died. Like me, he was always separate from the other kids in the orphanage. But the difference is, my personality is timid and he is a cold fish. Standing next to him, sometimes I feel like I'm about to freeze. It seems that we never talked to each other. One day fate helped me and him become friends. That day, as usual, I was being beaten by bullies near the toilet area. Out of nowhere, he suddenly appeared in front of us. But contrary to the hero saves the weak mindset that I've read in dozens of comic series, he's not here to save me. He looked the bullies in the eye and shouted, "Get out of my way! You guys are blocking my way to the toilet." I was quite surprised when I first witnessed a kid dare to yell at bullies. They immediately stopped beating me and turned to sneer at him and said, "You're the newbie here. Who gave you that liver? We have not had a chance to ask you. Don't be so cocky." He glanced at me and then turned to the bullies again. "So you guys like violence? People like you are the kind of person I hate the most, just like my damn father." This guy is a cheeky. The bullies finished talking, immediately ran up to attack him. I think this guy is crazy. I closed my eyes, taking a minute to reflect on his bravery. After a minute, I opened my eyes. In front of me was the image of bullies lying on the yard. I was surprised for the second time since then. He pointed at each bully's face and said, "I'm not a saint who saves sentient beings, so I don't care if you guys bully or not. However, don't do that in front of me. If I see you again, you won't just lie in the yard like today." After saying that, he walked past the bullies and carefreely entered the toilet. During this time, I also recovered and sat up. When he came out, I asked, "How can you be so powerful?" He looked at me and replied, "I'm a guy who grew up in abuse, I still have some skills to protect myself." From that moment on, I became an admirer of this guy. Following in his footsteps, I said aloud, "May I be your friend?" He still didn't stop, mouth said, "Depend on you." Since that day, I interacted with him more. Over time, I realized that he is not as cold and scary as he seems. Go with him every day, the bullies no longer make me the target of their attacks. He told me about his situation. I also told him my situation. I thought that when I told him, he would despise my timid personality, but he agreed with me very much. During my days at the orphanage, he always helped and encouraged me a lot. Just like that, I went from a shy person to become more confident, and the success is the good result of a long process of training me. I haven't seen him in years. It is said that later he attended technical school, went to work, got married, had children in another city. Thanks to many connections, I was fortunate to find the area where he lived. Today I plan to go find him and visit him after many years of not seeing him. I want to thank him again for giving me life today. At the same time, I plan to poke fun at him by acting jealous when he finds a wife. I didn't know exactly where his house was, so I had to ask local residents. But surprisingly, no one knew him. Maybe I'm in the wrong area? While struggling to find his house, at a house on the corner of the street, I saw a woman and her daughter laughing while opening the door. She is a very beautiful woman, with a perfect figure and a pretty face. However, for some reason, I felt that there was something familiar about her. What can I say? There is a sense of closeness. Well, it's also convenient to ask about the house. I walked up to her and said hello. The moment she looked up at me, she made a surprised face and quickly turned away. At this point, I know why I have a feeling of closeness and familiarity. She looks a lot like the old friend Taft who was in the same orphanage as me. But I never heard him say he had a sister or a relative. I have no doubts about it either, because if he had a relative, he wouldn't have ended up in the orphanage. But just to be sure, I ask, wait, miss, can I ask if you are a relative of Mr. Taft? She turned to her daughter and said in a clear, easy-to-listen voice, "Let's go up to the room to play. Let me talk to him for a moment." She very politely replied, "Yes, I know." When her daughter disappeared far behind the door, she turned to look at me with a cold expression. At this time, I see her even more like Taft. Her voice dropped a few intervals as she said, "What are you doing here?" Thousands of questions popped into my head. It took me a while to reconfigure. I turned to say, "Are you Taft? What's that mean? Why did my old friend become like this?" "Come in," Taft told me that. After I settled down in the living room, Taft went to the kitchen to make tea. I kept looking up at Taft's every move. I have to secretly compliment, my old friend is so beautiful. My heart flutters a little right now. Because I focus too much on career development, so far I am still a single guy without a love affair. After contemplating for a while, I suddenly felt scared with my thought just now. This is my friend, a man, how can I be moved? Taft poured tea to invite me, although his attitude was still the same as when we were in the orphanage, but clearly his gesture was much softer and more polite. After a long conversation, he told me all the story. After listening, I was deeply moved by the immense love he had for his daughter. As I thought, he hasn't changed over the years, he's the kind of person who kind inside, hard outside. Taft also asked about my current situation. After knowing that I was coming from afar, He suggested that I stay with him for a few days and then come back. I happily accept, because of the nature of my job, I don't have to be present every day at the company. That night, when I was about to go to bed, I saw an extremely sexy Taft in a nightgown walking across my face. Although Taft still looks normal, I am extremely nosebleeding at the moment. I subconsciously considered him a hot woman but forgot that he used to be a guy who easily punched bullies. I spent 3 days at Taft's house. Although I could still stay for a few more days, I decided to leave today. I have a nosebleed watching this sexy woman every minute and every second. But more importantly, in the 3 days of living with her family, I realized, it seems that I have fallen in love with Taft. My heart still beats faster every time I see him. But this is my friend, a man. As soon as I can keep my sanity, I have to leave him. In the moment of parting, he gave me a sunny smile and wished me luck in life. I froze for a few seconds when I saw this smile. I never seen him smile in the long time I've known him. Ironically, he smiled at the moment he was in the form of a woman. At the same time I was losing myself because I could not clearly define my feelings for him. In that moment, I knew for sure that I was in love. Having gone a long way, I turned around and said loudly, "Thank you for everything. Not my parents, not my relatives, it was you who gave me everything, from confidence to success in society. And yet, you also taught me what love is. I love you, Taft." Taft showed a dumbfounded expression that was speechless. I chuckle with delight. This is probably the first time I've had a feeling of victory with this perfect man, oh no, this perfect lady. The end. Today's story would like to stop here. Thank you for watching. Please like and share for people with similar interests to motivate me to develop my channel. Goodbye and see you in another story.